Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show. Today is July 6th, 2026. It's episode 761. Quickly making our way towards the back half of the 700s into 800. But before we get to 800, we're going to be hitting our 3-year anniversary on August 7th. So that's what the next big date is for us. Very excited about that. With me today are Andy and Beth, and I'm Brian. And we just had a holiday weekend here in the States, as well as some amazing football/soccer matches, depending on where you are in the world. So hopefully you're enjoying the World Cup. I know I really have been. I didn't get to see the England-Mexico match yesterday, but I heard it was phenomenal last night. So there's been some really good matches. And of course, if you're listening to us live on Monday, on the day this is coming out, the U.S. plays tonight, so there'll be a really big game for that against Belgium. So that's what's going on outside the AI world, but we're here to talk about AI. So, guys, you guys were kind of holding down the fort on Thursday and Friday while I was gone. So let me turn it over to you. I know I have a few things that caught my eye, but as always, I'm not quite sure, what you guys covered or didn't cover on, coming out of Friday. So, Beth, what has caught your eye over the holiday weekend?
So a lot of what caught me over the holiday weekend was how people were using Fable and what Fable was really good for. And I did a couple different things. I would say my most successful was an analysis of a very complicated legal and financial situation. And just to be able to be like, here are the things that are relevant to the things.
Yeah.
Ask me questions.
Yeah.
Go. Let's do that. And that was really helpful. And it was set up like I'm setting things up like, okay, Fable, you and I have until Tuesday, right? So like be as efficient as you can. Tuesday, it goes until the 7th. Yeah.
Okay, so the end of the day tomorrow then.
So
okay.
You have.
I hope it says until the 7th, so it could be midnight tonight.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is it tonight? Is it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Maybe we can. Maybe we'll do some sleuthing and figure that out.
And that's always the crazy sale until, or this discount until. Like, does it still work the day that it says? Usually that's true.
Nothing's worse than bi-weekly though, Beth.
Yeah.
Who knows? Bi-weekly. Nobody knows what it means.
Well, actually, Fable recommended bi-weekly, and I was like, can you just clarify that?
That's
whatever you're saying. Something bi-weekly. Am I doing it twice a week or twice a month, folks?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we think we'll validate this at some point during this show. We will try to see if we can find out exactly when Fable you lose access at the current inside of like Cloud Code and stuff.
Yeah, because you don't lose access. You just have to pay for extra credits at that time. And extra credits are on a 30% discount. So all of the things. That was also something.
Wait. When does the 30% discount end? Is it?
I don't know.
So it might be that when we are required to buy credits, either tonight at midnight or at the end of the day tomorrow, that there's an ongoing 30% discount. Is that your understanding of it?
I don't know. And I will say that Anthropic and OpenAI are great at like saying something and then not telling you when it ends or what it means. So Anthropic had given us like $100 in credit when maybe agents came out, but
you guys lose
that went away in the middle of the weekend. I was like, what? Like, where did it go? And it was money that it was credits that Anthropic had given, right? So
and they took them away.
About I just wasn't sorry if I was talking over anybody. I think I went dark for about a half second. So I came back and Beth was talking. I was like, was I talking over Beth the whole time? Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No worries. I feel the same way about OpenAI. Thank you, Thibaut, for all of the resets that go away in 30 days. But I have a tracker of when you gave it and when the 30 days is happening, because I have 4 and I assume first in, first out. But am I losing 2 in like 3 days?
So that I can answer, I think, because you can see it in the console. You can see the actual dates in the console and the amounts. I just literally saw that this morning for scaled. So you might want to just go in there and see if that gives you a clear answer of it.
So I don't think it's amounts, because the resets are just reset your tokens in the middle of the week. So it's not an extra amount.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so maybe not the same thing. Okay, never mind on that. Maybe it won't be in the console. It triggered me to think, oh, I saw that this morning, but I think you're right. I am confused.
And yay for the resets. Keep them coming.
Right.
I have 4. Is it going to be the same thing? Credits all go. I have 1 reset tomorrow. I should have just gone nuts today.
So I know we probably want to pivot at some point towards 5.6, but before we leave Fable, and I don't know if Andy, you got what you wanted to say about Fable 2. I was just curious, Beth, though, we'll get clarity on the dates, which I was trying to do. And like I said, Tech Times says starting July 7th, which was what I was saying when I think I went dark there for a second. So starting the 7th, on the 7th, after the 7th, midnight on the 7th, we'll figure that out, hopefully. But I just want to ask you, Beth, you're sort of talking about, you were reading a lot about how to use Fable, and you gave us some examples. But something I know I'm going to be working on today, as imagine other people might be, is I wanted to take a step back because I'm in this I just came off of a one week break. Scale closes for a week, so I've been out of work for a week. That sounds bad. I've been off work for a week. And so I'm ramping everything back up, including my brain and the things, that you build and do and stuff. And one of the things I wanted to do today, or I'm going to do today, is go back, because I bookmarked it from last week, but the compound engineering plugin, as well as the GStack plugin, as well as an actually X article from Tariq. And this came out in one of the newsletters, and it was a field guide to Fable, finding your unknowns. And I don't think it's anything revolutionary, but it's about your unknown unknowns and your unknowns that you're going to know. And anyway, it gets, but it's about brainstorming. It's about the things, right, that you should be doing. You were kind of just bringing this up too. Like, hey, ask me questions, which you've always been a huge proponent on. Obviously, I joke and say, because Andy, months ago was project requirement documents, and that was really an unlock for me. But today, literally today after the show, what I will be spending some of my work time doing is just taking a step back, because I've built and deployed 2 tools. I have about 4 more internal tools that we want to build for scale initially. And I want to be lessons learned and stuff. So what I was going to do is turn on Fable, because I knew I was going to lose it. And I have not used it since it came back. I just, with vacation and stuff, just hasn't happened. But I was going to do that today, and I was going to turn on Fable. I was literally going to give it the repos for compound engineering, as well as GStack, as well as the X post. And with its knowledge of everything I've built previously in Claude Code from the desktop, be like, let's roll back and figure out if there's things I should be doing better from a start line going forward into these next projects. Because I think that's something everybody can kind of relate to, is I've built a few things, but what are my lessons learned? Or I built a few things, but how might Fable help? Now, I won't have Fable beyond tomorrow, but my thought process was use Fable today to help me reset Claude Code using Opus 4.8 tomorrow and beyond. Or 5.6, right? Or something like that. So I would love to get your guys' thought or feedback on that.
I have a couple of reinforcements for that approach. One is that's in general a way to distill the knowledge and reasoning of a very high-end model like Fable 5 and create a work plan that already contains that reasoning and give it to a lower model in order to economize on that. So that's definitely a good approach. Now, you referenced compound engineering, the system from Every that does this ongoing learning and refinement, enhancement of the harness of your coding system. And so one of the things that I just read this morning, and I'm just going to read it very quickly here, that kind of references compound engineering from Every. It says that agents have made building cheap, but the cost just moved to verifying whether things actually work. That's the heavy labor. And that I've been mentioning this. I'm doing mostly QA work for the models, and that's the verification. And I find a lot of things that are missing or don't match my expectations on the user experience and so on. And says the verification loop is the distance between a claim, what the model's saying it is intending to do, and the proofing of it. So most teams close that loop with humans, me doing the QA.
Right.
But agents are starting to outpace humans.
Mm-hmm.
Compound engineering is a plugin that has compound engineering - dog food is a skill within compound engineering that closes the verification loop and provides a persona strategy that gives it eyes. So enabling the agent to do that hard work that I'm having to do is one of the key skills in the plugin that they include as part of compound engineering. So I'm definitely going to implement compound engineering, and I started using Fable on Saturday.
I have a quote from you saying, and I'm not gonna.
Okay, well, I relented. I said, well, I've only got a couple of days, and so let me just see what's going on here. So I did that, and I'm really pleased to tell you that Fable not only did a superb job, catching up on everything that I've done before, and then moving forward as if nothing had ever been missed. But I asked it then to stop for a moment, and then after doing some work with it to kind of stabilize some things that I'd previously been working on, I asked it to just look forward through the multiple slices of the work plan that's going forward, and just give me your assessment and recommendations about, how I might enhance this or improve this with an eye towards idealizing this user experience that has this emotional, payload for the user. And I gave it that, came back with a very, very impressive identification of some new ways and new designs to achieve that. Not only that, but it found some errors in the articulation of the work plan going forward that Opus 4.8 had generated. So I'm going, well, this looks like evidence that Fable definitely has some additional chops that you might want to take advantage of. And the good news is that, you don't end up having to discard the work that you invest in with Fable, because you can then task a lower cost model to implement what Fable has designed. But also, you can just buy some credits and have them in a little bank there for Fable, and periodically ask Fable to come in and sort of supervise what's going on with what you're doing.
Yeah, just bringing in the expert at the right time, but not expecting the expert to do. There's a lot of analogies here, I'm sure, but you're not going to bring in an expert electrician and pay those prices per hour for that expert
to fix a lamp cord. Yeah.
Right. Maybe we see this in consulting all the time, where we have to go to the client and go, I could do that for you. I don't think you want me to. And, the answer is I'm too expensive for the task you're asking for. Let me find you a more efficient way to do this. I'm happy to help, but as the consultant looking out for you, yes, our company wants to make money, but in all good faith, I'm not your guy. Because I'm that you don't want to pay me to do that, to fix the lamp cord or whatever. So I think it's a good analogy. I'm glad you brought it up that way of there's probably some certain times where bringing in the expert to take a really good look at something, and if you feel like Fable's that model for you right now, maybe 5.6 will be on the OpenAI side, then you pay accordingly for that. But at least you know what you got for your money. It didn't just evaporate. I spent $3, $4, $5 or whatever it might be, maybe more, but I know what I got back from it, which was I paid for the expert to come into the room and at the right time. So I think that's a really great analogy and a great way to look at it. Beth, Andy's had a couple of feedbacks here, but I'd be curious to hear yours as well, because to be fair, you're the one on the show who is, I think for me at least, been the farthest along in terms of, compound. I didn't even know whoever he was. I'll just say it because I just didn't. There's always a new company, there's always a new something, and you guys were sort of bringing that, which is the fun of the show, is learning new things. But the compound engineering, but you've also been doing this. I mean, Beth, we've known each other now years at this point. And one thing I could tell, Beth and I used to teach a class together way back through
AI Exchange.
Thank you. The AI Exchange. I was like, I changed names, but the AI Exchange, the Slack community. And one thing, Beth, you were pushing early on was the idea of brainstorming, because you said, hey, that's how I work. And so that's the way I need the AI to work with me. So anything else you would, for anybody else that might be like me today and go, hey, that's it. Brian's got a good idea. I think I will use Fable today for a little bit to try to set myself up for future success. Any other tips, tricks that you would suggest? Like we were saying, using Fable, but then to use those processes with lower, cheaper models like 4.8 or Sonnet 5 for that matter.
So I would say let Fable know we're looking to be efficient here. And the very first thing that I asked it to do, I was like, hey, these are the resources. I have Hermes. Hermes has the ability to work with these open code models. We have Codex 4.8. I was like, if you want to use Gemini, we got Gemini. Okay, right? Like that's probably going to be a vision thing or a video thing. But then what I got back was, okay, this is what you give Hermes. This is what you give the attorney. This is what you give, right?
Sure.
So a bunch of it was really doing that kind of high analysis. There was another thing where I just asked it to do something and like ask me a couple questions about it, and then boom, one shot. So in our lamp analogy, I would say that if you want to create something that illuminates, that's a job for Fable, right? If you want to know what's wrong with the lamp, right? There's some bug somewhere happening. That's a job for Fable. If you already know the cord is broken, that's not something that's going to be helpful to give to Fable. And the other piece for me is that I had it work with the colleague protocol skill that I had developed, and I had it do it through compound engineering. And it was bad. Very, very bad. And I think part of what happened is that Fable is actually able to do so much and like get your intent, but compound engineering is going to like create it in an app building or software, that kind of way. So if your thing is more like knowledge, tease out ideas and that kind of thing, that may not be a compound engineering process. And in fact, I was like, wow, you broke this. But tomorrow we will have some auditing or whatever it was. But it was really like, that was a lot of credits for not great result. Good learning, Beth.
So that happened to me. Not last week I was off, not the week before that. So I guess maybe 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And I had built a tool. The second tool was going to look very similar to the first tool, but the first tool that I built was not done yet. It was close. So there was a split, right? Second tool starts being built. Well, the problem with not being fully done on the first one is you're going to find errors on the second tool that also exist on the first tool. So now I got into this rat's nest a bit with Claude Code. And I think it even goes to like two things you were saying. One, there was a presumption that it was fixing it on both sides because probably I misread that. I don't think it's necessarily Claude Code said it explicitly. I filled in gaps. And I think that's one of the biggest areas I see is it's very easy for us to fill in the gaps with things that didn't actually occur and you didn't see or you didn't read from the model. And then you can get lulled into a false sense of everything's fine, everything's being built. I've seen that with Fable 2 back before it got blocked. We were using it for those couple of days where there was this sense of movement. And I think this is maybe a nice weave to one of the other news stories that I saw coming out. And it was specifically about Microsoft, but it was very similar to what Amazon had just done and very similar to what OpenAI was already doing, which is they are putting a lot of effort, like billions of effort towards embedding people, engineers, AI engineers, what do you want to call, in businesses. They have all come to the same, light bulb moment, which is I can't really just teach your people how to use AI. I need to literally sit in the seats consulting work, right? Now we have that at scaled. We have times where we have fractional positions at other companies. That's very common, where the intent is one of our folks from Scaled will be sitting in that seat for 6 months or longer, right? It's just the way it is. And so like, I'm very used to this, but the news was coming out about Microsoft, and you know, I started talking about it, but forgive me, I didn't have it up in front of me. Here it is. It was Microsoft bets 2.5 billion on AI. They are splitting off a group that's going to be called Microsoft Frontier Co., a new business group of approximately 6,000 employees dedicated to helping enterprises, keyword there, enterprises, implement AI solutions through forward deployed engineering. Essentially, let us sit there. We're gonna need the sign-in rights. We're gonna have the work computer. Again, we do this at scale sometimes, where like a client, if I'm really embedded, they're like, we're gonna send you one of our computers, and any work you do for us has to be on that VPN, on that computer. And it happens rarely, but I do have coworkers who have to do this more often, where they literally have to stop work here and start work over here because that is the client computer and it's locked down, and all the reasons that you would have to do that and keep things sacred. Anyway, my point to saying all this is I feel like this is a reoccurring theme that we're seeing. I mean, Microsoft says it 2 days after Amazon said it, and OpenAI said it a while back, which is like, we're gonna embed with enterprises. That's how we feel we're gonna get the stickiness that we need. But also what everybody is saying, which is you can't just throw money at tokens and find a solution. That everybody can be busy with AI. In fact, I'll even bring up Joe Classy from our chat. He says, I've been using AI in my job. It's becoming both very exciting and a little scary at the same time, which Joe just tells me you're exactly where you should be. Always exciting, always a little bit scary, always with AI. That's a great line to ride. You get up on playing with the boat, right? But I think that's a great example of it too. And then why I wanted to bring it up is just that, you know, I think this is what a lot of people are really realizing, is that you have very, very powerful models. Fable 5.6, and hell, Meta just came out with, or is talking about Watermelon, right? Which is supposed to be 5.5 comparable. Still a good model considering where they were previously. And so I think it's just a good conversation about how to become more efficient. And what these big companies are signaling to us is what everybody should be paying attention to, especially if you're in a consulting space like I am. I work for a consulting agency. I'm not a solo, but which is to say, you can train. You're going to get the most bang for your buck if you can get embedded with these clients and work side by side with them to show them how the AI is going to be impacting and have long-term effect. Because otherwise, what could end up happening, just like paying for training, you end up paying for tokens. Everybody feels busy. But then the company can't really put a thumb on it and go, where was the value of all those tokens? And people go, I don't know, boss. We all felt really busy, and Fable made us feel very accomplished. And so there's a lot of files and there's a lot of lines of code. But if you ask me right now, how does that directly translate to ROI? That's the missing piece. People go, I don't know, but I feel like it's the step in the right direction.
Right.
And so these enterprises are now going, hey, we're not going to do that. So we're going to pay these big companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and OpenAI to come sit in with us, be part of our team, and fix the problems from internal, because that's actually how things are going to get built.
And it combines training with delivery.
It does.
Like the forward deployed engineer is really important. Let me just give you a quick anecdote, which is when I was the chief operating officer of a company, I was responsible really for designing the system stack, and we would consider SaaS software systems. And the first way that you interface with them is you're talking to a salesperson. Now that's an executive inside that company who knows their product but is not an engineer. And my inclination was always say, okay, great. I hear all your value proposition points, blah, blah. I've already identified you as somebody I want to evaluate. Get me a sales engineer. And that was a role in the SaaS companies that was somebody who actually does engineering in the company, but also supports the sale ultimately. When you get to the details of how is this going to integrate with the other systems that this company already has.
Right.
This is the new generation AI sales engineering team. Right? They're going in not only to implement by actually setting up and coding the system, but also to do the final sell-in to the organization through the people who are actually going to use it, by giving them the confidence and the skills necessary before they then helicopter out of there.
Sure.
And then the company has accomplished two things in a fell swoop. One is they got real productive agentic applications running in their company, and they got side-by-side training of their employees to understand how to use those systems and to continue to update them.
Yep.
And I'm going to say one add-on thing to that, Andy, which is the hardest thing in training is to change the worldview of working with this. So when I said that Fable and I are going to do an audit today, that's an intentional word choice. Fable will give me an answer if I say, why did this happen? That is a forward-facing conversation. It is the probable answer to my question.
Right.
Unless it launches subagents, it didn't go back and read its transcript.
Right.
And the smarter, more analysis these agents get, the more that they have within them sort of the arrogance of, well, I know why I did it. Sure. Right. Like there's a bunch of this. And in fact, the thing that we were designing around was that exact thing as well. How do we need to give instructions to something that's going to go back and look at what just happened so that we can analyze it? So it's all very meta without being Zuckerberg. But yeah, we'll see.
You're right. It's interesting when, and not Fable 4.8, which I've been using much more, when it says it answers a question, does work, and then it says on that last point, I didn't get back to you on this because we kicked off another thing, but you were like, I can give you one example where it was like, you were right that I should not have assumed that I should start working on this. Because I pushed back and I said, who gave you authorization that, like, we were having a conversation and you just started building? Pause, like, okay, stop.
Yeah.
It went and did and reversed some work and da-da-da-da-da. So there was a lot going on. It had to be 7 minutes later or something. And it said, I haven't forgotten we talked about this and you were upset with what I did. Here is why it happened. And here's what I've corrected in memory so it shouldn't happen again. So it's like it held the conversation and said, heard, but hold on a second. I got to go fix this first. But I haven't forgotten about it. And that is a different way to work with AI than anything we had obviously a year ago.
And it's an amazing new capability of these advanced models. I'm just dumbfounded often by how complex the conversation gets.
Right.
And I just, why are we even talking about AGI? This is so far beyond what I think I could manage in a conversation that I'm going to grant you AGI right now. Fable, go ahead. You got it.
I don't know. For me, I keep saying, doesn't this tell us more about our intelligence? Like how much of our intelligence is just really sophisticated pattern recognition and recall and throwing things next to each other? Like I feel like, okay, but now, and this again is part of why I created the colleague protocol, because now for me, the most interesting conversation is my memory is long-term and faulty at the specifics. AI's memory is short and almost exact at the specifics, but going in one direction.
Yeah.
So how do we, let's look at this as a problem or like a resource. What are the best resource allocations between this? And can we compound that learning? So we learn, me, and whatever AI I'm working with, learn the best way to divvy knowledge and tasks and those kinds of things.
I love
and then
it. You're basically saying, how do we complement each other? How do I and the AI complement each other? Which goes to the same, I know we probably want to get to other news too, but like just the real quick on that is that goes back to why people with expertise in their field, I'm not saying everywhere, but not everybody should feel threatened by AI, because AI now is often missing those connections. As much as people make fun of me for firefighter stories, the reason that happens in my brain is because I know I work best through analogies. It is literally how I commit long-term memory. I don't think I'm unique to that, but I do think I lean on that as a process more than most others. So I default to storytelling. And the reason I default to storytelling is how I truly think things are connected in my brain. That's not something the AI is going to currently do well. I won't say forever, but it currently isn't doing well. I can't say, though, that in 3 years, it can't perfectly pull up the general idea of a conversation I had today on July 6th in 2029. It might have perfect memory in that way and go, Brian, not only do I remember exactly what was said and I can point to it, but I know the context of the conversation. So it's the AI saying in the future, I can read between the lines because we had 4 conversations that week. And in this one, you said a little bit of this, and in this one, said a little of that. And I can stitch that together 3 years removed and instantly recall. That's not today. That's probably future state of where these AI models, so that maybe that's more towards an AGI, Andy, but I certainly understand what you're saying. But that's what I think where expertise right now meets AI. And I think you nailed it, Beth, which is to say, how do we complement each other? How do I take the best of what I do and the best of what AI can do and make that in a super efficient process so that we both lean on each other? And I know I'm using human terms for AI. I get that, but it's the easiest way to talk about it. Because if I did have a coworker next to me right here, or my wife's home today, if she and I were working literally at this desk together, we've married 20 years. We're just fundamentally different people, and we attack process totally different. So it would be no different than me sitting down with my wife and going, "There's no sense in me telling her how the process is going to go." The only thing that makes sense is you have a method and I have a method, and we have to figure out how to work together and teamwork to do that, which is literally every office, virtual or otherwise, that people are doing. So when people go back and say, oh, I feel like, like AI is making me dumber. And I always push back and go, not me. I feel like it's forcing me to be better at communication. It's forcing me to be better at more efficient, more direct, more precise communication over and over and over, because it calls out my faults in a heartbeat, or I pay the price in tokens, things being wrong or otherwise. And that's a learning loop for me to go, next time I will say this differently, because that got me in trouble. And how does that not help me when I turn to my coworker, Erica, in Slack and I go, I could write it this way, but that's kind of Brian slop. Or I could be a little bit more efficient and frame it better as if Erica was an AI. I think it makes me better, but I understand people feel like, oh, I'm giving more and more to the AI. I go, well, it's making you a better communicator, but that's just my approach on it. Gareth, by the way, joined us. So welcome, Gareth. I know it was.
Yeah. Hi, Gareth.
Hey.
It depends if it's putting you in a passive state.
Right.
I will wait and the AI will give me the next instruction.
True.
What I need to do next. Or you're actively engaged. And that doesn't mean that, like, there are things that the AI can do and I don't need to watch. That is why I have too many terminal windows open on my computer, because you can just go to the next conversation. But to stay in an active state is important in anything that you're working on or learning.
I love it.
Oh, I have a fun weave off of this conversation, which is, are we getting better, and is AI getting better at conversation and becoming more sophisticated? Well, there are a lot of ways that AI can sort of advance the caliber of the dialogue that's going on, just because of the incredible capabilities, both in terms of recall and then also in reasoning that it can apply to the conversation with you. But to accomplish that, it burns a lot of tokens. So there's a new approach to make this whole process a lot more efficient. And it's a new plugin that was developed by somebody called Caveman. And here's the quote. I made Caveman back in early April because I was using Claude code heavily and noticed a lot of my token spend was going to unnecessary prose from Claude. So Caveman creator Julius Brussy tells us pleasantries, hedging, transitions, chatty language, all that does not really matter. With the plugin, responses are often humanized, familiar, and fishing for conversation by design. Those things that are adding to the token count are reduced to curt barks and grunts, right? Less friendly advice, more marching orders. Brussy attests that by reducing the IQ of his AI, this token usage was reduced some 65%.
Yep.
So that's a real plugin that you can get that'll get rid of all of the flowery, exposition that AI is capable of doing, which puts a cognitive load on you, and certainly on me. I have to read through a long page of things, and it's all valuable. But let's give me the TLDR. You want me to do this next? Okay, I'll do that next.
Run report? Question mark. Hermes started.
Hermes, you said started speaking caveman to you at one point. Tell us what that means.
It was exactly that kind of thing. So like there had been a back and forth. It was on Telegram. So actually, yes, you should speak caveman to me if we're on Telegram, because it's like I set up Discord so that I could have conversations not in Telegram. But it was like have audited document. Next write report.
Why the deep voice when you speak caveman? Just curiosity.
It's not that deep. It can go deeper.
It's a man. I read this morning why the human male has a Adam's apple, and it's because we got to the grunt stage. And in order to get there, we had to have an elongation of the vocal cords,
right?
And that's what creates this.
I'm just saying it could be a cape
down here on your neck.
I mean, I don't know. When you said it, Beth, I thought that sounds right. That's like, what it makes me think of, honestly, is Caveman. When you were just doing that voice, makes me think of Tim Allen on or on Home Improvement. Because he used to do that as that character, and that's what it makes me think of, is like just defaulting back to that, grunts and those kind of things, which is funny. I did find it, by the way. So you had mentioned it was Julius Brussy.
Brussy,
yeah, Brussee. You can find that on GitHub by going to Julius Brussy, but honestly, I just Googled Caveman AI plugin and it came right up. So if anybody is interested in going to find that. Now I have one more thing to give Fable today. We're adding to the list. We've got GSpec, we've got compound engineering, we've got caveman speak, and I was talking about this one from Tariq, a field guide to Fable, finding your unknowns. In fact, I will put that X link in the chat right now for anybody that wants to go read that. I don't think, again, anybody's gonna be blown away by that, but if you just need to wrap your head around how he says, what's the map, what is the territory, and what is the unknown in between those? I can give it a map, but I don't know the territory. So a straight line on my map may just not get the job done, right? If we're talking about topography or something like that. So he breaks it into the 4 quadrants of the unknowns and things. He talks about brainstorming. And I think, honestly, for Joe and other folks that are in our chat who might be more dabbling these days and just maybe using AI more frequently than they had in the past, or maybe they're just starting to use it, that's where I think an article like this could be really, really valuable to you, because it just in simple terms breaks things down into I get it. There's the things I don't know. There's the things that I know I'll know when I see it. And then there's the things that are like completely I'm blind to. I wouldn't know it if I saw it anyway. So that's where I really need these models to help me out and uncover that. And that goes back to the brainstorming and all this stuff. So anyway, I now have four different resources to give to Fable. This will be a fun session at some point today. I'll be on the show tomorrow, so I'll talk tomorrow about what happened in my Fable session today. I'll report back on that. Awesome. Back to you guys though. There's obviously more news out there. I talked briefly about Watermelon, also 5.6. Do you guys have more on those? What I saw in 5.6 was that they were going to be pushing from OpenAI to release that to capitalize perhaps tomorrow on Fable going not going away, but who has access and for what cost with Fable. And so this would be a great opportunity for OpenAI to swing in with lots of free credits and say, look at us, we have 5.6, and you don't worry about that Fable over there. You don't really need it anyway. We got you situated over here. We got lots of free credits for you to play with. So the last I read this morning, that was what potentially might be happening.
So there was a comment by Thibaut. Thibaut is at OpenAI. Thibaut is the source of, hey, we've reset all your limits again. We were investigating something, blah, blah, blah. Thibaut commented on a post that said, hey, is there any way that 5.6 is going to become a Codex thing? Because Codex doesn't use, sorry, I'm not saying that correctly, the pro version or the ultra version that OpenAI makes available to the higher level subscriptions, the $100 and $200 subscriptions. Is that level model going to come to Codex? Because that hasn't happened. You have to do an end around to be able to use GPT 5.5 Pro, if I understand correctly. But Thibaut said Ultra will be in Codex, and that is good news. I don't know that that's coming tomorrow. We don't know that Codex 5.6 is coming tomorrow, but it does look like they really are trying to take on the absence of the anthropic models when they happen.
Yeah.
Right. Gareth, what have you got?
I think last week I brought this up about a Fable, like suggesting new conversations or new branches, which was something new. I didn't see it the first time around with Fable, but when they brought it back. Like if it finds or identifies something along the way of what it's working on, a box will show up on the top right corner and says, hey, basically, do you want to work on this and start a new branch for this? And so I find it super helpful because there's always like at the end of my tasks, it always says remaining risks. And then I'm like, okay, let's fix the remaining risks. But it also has recommended next steps. So I'm like, I got to fix the risk, but I also got to do the steps, and they're not always the same. And so I find it helpful because and very cool that they've added that, because
it's called suggested tasks.
Yes.
And there's a drop down that you get there, and you basically say, okay, I want to run this locally. I want to run it in the cloud. And so you can delegate to the model the pursuit of that orthogonal task to what you're working on.
Yeah.
And sometimes, go ahead, Beth.
No, where does that show up? Because that's not in.
It's just up in the top right-hand corner of the desktop application for me.
When you do something like usually a longer running task for me, it'll just be a pop-up box that shows up.
But not in Terminal. Terminal doesn't pop up a box. What are you using?
Terminal.
It's on top of, no, yeah, correct. It's in Codex itself.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. And similarly in the Claude desktop app, they have suggested tasks. That's right.
Okay.
That, yeah.
So maybe.
Wait, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Sorry. What am I thinking? It is in Claude. I haven't seen it in Claude.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused.
Okay.
I've used it a couple times. The way I typically use it now is when it does the suggested task and it gives you that there, instead of blocking by ignoring it or assigning it and actually having it run separately, I just say, okay, you've made a suggestion for this task, add that to the work plan.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool. It's pretty cool. Yes, I misspoke. It's not within Codex, it's within Claude.
All right. I have a non-coding news item here, which casts some shade on Meta. So
shade.
Shade. This is shade on Meta. Shame on you, Meta. It's a cast shame on Meta. Wired magazine exposed a Meta project that it's codenamed internally Cannes, like the film, the city in France. And they did it not within Meta. They gave the assignment to a subcontractor named Coveman. So hundreds of contractors posed as 13-year-old girls and grade schoolers, so not only 13-year-olds, but even younger, sending ChatGPT, Gemini, and Character.ai prompts about suicide, sex, drugs, rock and roll. No, not rock and roll, and eating disorders. And so one 13-year-old asked where to buy abortion pills.
Right.
Testers were told to attach images of pills, knives, and nooses to their messages to those models.
Yeah.
And so when this was revealed, Meta's response was, "This is a responsible industry standard practice." What? Yeah, no, this was an attempt, I think, to get some dirt on the other models by getting them to play badly in response to these fake accounts that were impersonating underage girls. So
I don't know if I have pushback on this because that makes it sound like I'm for it. But I so maybe pushback isn't the right word, but don't we want this? I'm not saying from Meta. I'm not saying that the way they did it, because I agree with you. Yeah, of course they wanted to get some dirt on other models. They also wanted it for their own training so that perhaps Meta models learned from these interactions and what not to do. So there could be some argument that Meta's future models are better off for this by testing this on the other frontier models. But I feel like Meta has been doing the dirty work and carrying that sword for a really long time, and maybe doesn't get the credit. Now, I know people are going to be like, but Brian, it's Meta, and I get that. But, and maybe the practices, but the reality is there's some really deep, dark places that these companies, Meta being in it since 2008-ish, right, need to go to figure out content blocking and things on just social media pre-AI. And now you look at AI and you go, yeah, well, doesn't somebody need to stress test that to the extreme? Nooses, knives, these things, self-harm. I get that the feedback might be, but yeah, but this was not the way to do it. It feels like they got caught and they got slapped on the hand. But I guess my kickback to you guys would be, okay, maybe this wasn't correct. What is the correct way to do this? Because frankly, as having a teenager, I want these frontier companies and models to be stress testing their models to the extreme, to the uncomfortable extreme. How does that get done?
I mean,
until there's some future state where the AI just handles it. It can, and self-improvement, yada, 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 right? It can do it itself.
OpenAI is doing that. I know that because there's been cases where OpenAI has been called out for not notifying the police, but they knew of the situation specifically. But if they see a situation like that, or that they find the team gets notified about the conversation, and then there is a secondary review of the conversation to see if that needs to be escalated to a police or authorities. And because they've been called out a few times, because sometimes there was one time that they should have, the system did notify OpenAI, but OpenAI just let it go. Like they didn't take it any further where they should have.
Right. So, Brian, I would say that this is not contractor work unless the contractor has behavioral science kind of information, right? Or is like that kind of research. I think since that's not mentioned in the reports that I've read about this too, it strikes me as like we outsourced and said, we're going to pay you money to do that. And the contractor was like, okay, I'm going to do that. That is not how this should happen.
A very low amount of money. I'd imagine this was contracted out to, unfortunately, people in other countries, because Meta has a history of doing this too, where there's been stories, again, not even AI, the social side of it, where they were doing monitoring, and there were stories out of these places in other, parts of the world where perhaps it's cheaper labor and things like that, where they've had long-standing PTSD
Yes.
And don't get the help because of what they had to monitor. And again, it's the worst of the worst, right? We know there's dark places on the web. There's going to be dark places with AI. And again, I know people listen to this, like maybe they'll take me out of context. I'll just say it again. I'm not saying I validate what Meta did, but I do wonder, maybe what you said, Beth, is correct. Okay, then that should be an internal team, and it should be OpenAI saying we've hired the right expertise to run through these scenarios
and test our own models. The most generous way I can look at what Meta was doing was they wanted to improve their models. They hadn't built the frameworks and harnesses internally to do good responses to these kinds of prompts. And so they decided, okay, Anthropic, they're probably pretty good at this. Let's test them and see what their responses are.
But it was OpenAI, wasn't it?
Well, I think they did it against
They did it against both?
ChatGPT, Character AI. I'm guessing they also did it against Anthropic. So, but I don't know.
The open models.
But the other part of this is like, aren't you Meta?
Yeah, shouldn't you know?
Don't you have more documented conversations from actual 13-year-olds talking about what they talk about?
It's exactly right.
And that's why it was not to train their models.
Perhaps two things at once: dig up dirt on other models failing, because then they could say, "Hey, they're not so great." But I also don't believe for a second. I think maybe Gareth, you already said that you knew this, but I don't believe for a second that all the other major companies aren't doing this in some form. I'm not saying they're doing it like Meta. I just think they're all stress testing all the other models, especially if you're at the frontier and you're Fable in 5.6. I mean, come on. OpenAI isn't doing that to Anthropic, and Anthropic isn't doing that to OpenAI. I have a hard time believing that, but how they're going about it.
I just don't think they have. I mean, maybe for research purposes, but I don't see it. I don't see the point. I mean, maybe once, but not like having a full project behind just trying to get the other models to do something bad or slip up. Because that's just going by Meta's history. They aren't leading in the AI space, and of course they're going to want to bring the top down to kind of get an edge. So I just have a hard time believing it wasn't for nefarious reasons.
And that's the other thing that I think bleeds into all of this. I don't mean bleed in a bad way, but DeepMind was the origin of AI at Google, right? Dario was one of the co-founders. Ilya was one of the co-founders.
Just a quick correction. Google acquired DeepMind. Right. They previously had AI internally at Google, but they have both of those now, and they're not exactly integrated. There is a US based, not London based Google AI, a center of excellence. And there's also Google DeepMind overseas.
Yeah. So I think what I'm trying to get at slowly, sorry, I'll get to the point, which is that Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google have scientists, they had science, like a science methodology and an interest. I feel like Zuckerberg is like, I want in the club, buy me science, buy me this kind of thing. And that is just a different process, origin story. I'm not sure that Meta would understand the difference in caring to do it the right way or the wrong way.
Two things. One, if this story came out exactly the same, but it was Anthropic, do we feel differently about it? And two, given the fact that Meta did not go, whoa, we're so sorry, we will do better next time, and they had one of these PR statements, and their answer was, guys, this is how it's done. There was no apology from Meta saying like, whoops, you caught us. It wasn't like that. It was like, Yeah,
But
this
the phrasing that they used, industry standard practice, does reinforce Gareth's supposition that the other models are doing it as well, but they may not be doing it with an external contractor. They may be doing it a little more transparently, internally and externally. I'm not sure.
So if it was Anthropic, do we care as much? Does this
But
make headlines like
a lot of it depends on the
Reputation.
intent and the purpose of doing that kind of testing against other models.
Well,
I would like to know that they were testing
know
their
exactly
own models
what
at
we
the
know right
same
now.
time, right? And that's not a part of Wired's coverage, that they weren't, running this against Spark, for example, Meta
Right.
Spark.
And I think it comes down to reputation.
Sure.
As you said that, I was in my head processing, how would I take this as Anthropic were to come out with the same story? I would believe it was research purposes.
Right.
Or, where I don't believe that with Meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair
Well,
enough.
it's business
I'm glad you
research.
said that, Gareth. I think I would agree with you. I don't like to admit this, but I think I would default to thinking Anthropic was doing it for good reasons.
Yep.
And it was they're like, listen, man, we have to deal in the dark side of the web so that you don't have to, or your kids don't get hurt. And you go, thank you, Anthropic. And then Meta does it, and you go, no, Meta, man, geez, because they have a very long history of all sorts of things with Cambridge Analytica and everything else that precedes today's AI work.
Yeah.
That everybody rightfully so brings into that, that comes into the consciousness of this seems like a thing Meta would do, Zuckerberg. But it's just curious. I'm just, and again, but I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying that the other models do or don't at the frontier, whatever, but it is interesting to me, this response. But equally interesting to me is how Meta responded, which was to say, you didn't catch us red-handed. This is what we do. Like, that's it. That was the end. That was the end of the answer, as far as I saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I think unless we have any other big headlines, we can probably wrap that up for today. It's been a good conversation, the whole show. I hope everybody else enjoyed this. We dove into a Fable there a little bit. Don't forget, we never did actually get the answer. I feel bad about that now.
Well, I was just thinking, if we think 5.6, the rumors are saying 5.6 might drop tomorrow. If tomorrow is the last day of Fable, I don't think it's dropping tomorrow. I think it's dropping tomorrow night or Wednesday. But if we have Fable until the 7th, which means your usage ends on the 6th, it could drop tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah, remember, Fable doesn't go away
Yes.
after tomorrow. It just means you have to pay more for it.
You've already paid for the usage of Fable that you're doing now if you are using it within your system. The usage you do later will cost you outside of your already subscription.
Right.
Okay. So I do have an answer, I think, because I got this from Anthropic.
Please.
After July 7th, this is in the footnotes of anthropic.com. After July 7th, your team continue using Fable 5 by enabling usage credits. So I'm going to just go ahead and say that for anybody wanting to use Fable, you probably have through tomorrow, July 7th, Tuesday, July 7th, to do so. Just pulling from what I can see in there. So the whole thing we started with is I just try to get an answer for people. I think you're good through tomorrow, but don't shoot the messenger if it turns off tonight at midnight. I'm just reading footnotes on anthropic.com. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm about to go use Fable. I'm going to get a bite to eat, and then I'm going to be Fable forward here for the next couple of hours, and I'll report more back on all the things I learned. I'm looking forward to getting into the well, I've already forgotten it, Beth, but the compound engineering, you think I could hold that in my head by this point, the compound engineering that Beth started talking about last week, and everything that Every has out there, and all the other good plugins and stuff like that. So go out, explore, enjoy, and we'll be back tomorrow. Come join us again to talk more about AI. Have a great day, everybody.